Everybody out there, welcome to another edition of the Roundtable Talk. I am your host, C Money, and we are here back again at Sewell Park. Um, Earlier, I did two episodes. I did an episode at the River Landing Shops and Residency, which is about a less than a 5 minute drive or so from here. Probably 10 minutes if you're walking like I did. Probably less than a 5 minute drive. And we did a overall look of the Sewell Park in the episode after that. And now I'm here to do a regular episode here in the park, talking about gentrification in areas. I've talked about this in several of my episodes in the past, and I want to talk to y'all about gentrification and what does it mean. We did several episodes about it. We did one at the Liberty Square housing projects. We did one in downtown Miami and certain areas, in Broward and Palm Beach and a lot of these areas. And we did a lot of the episodes, so let's hop right into it. So, gentrification. What does it mean and what is it all about? Gentrification is the new name of remodeling from what they have. By the way, that was my water bottle. Gentrification is basically changing areas into something different. And if you see my video in the past of History South Florida, where we did a video of the Liberty Square housing projects, they gentrified it to where now it is upscale apartments that are costing you $1,000+ to live in. It is no longer the urban projects that we saw in the 80s and the 90s and the 60s and the 70s and all of that. It is now gentrified as affordable living facilities. And it's the same thing with River Landing. River Landing was never there. It was probably an open space to where they changed it to where now it's a shopping and a residency complex. A lot of these buildings now are being gentrified as that. You get a lot of these places that used to be apartment complexes, and they used to be old apartment buildings that used to be there from the 80s and 90s. They're being torn down and being gentrified into residence and shopping complex. Remember I did a video on South Miami, and I remember we did a video and we was talking about the Winn-Dixie that had closed down. And I did my research online to where they said that a developer bought out the property and it's going to be used into a mixed-use development, which meaning that you closed a supermarket that was there since I was a little kid, even though I didn't live in South Miami, but it was there since I was a little kid, and you now going to turn it into the mixed-use development. You're gentrifying the areas and stuff like that, and that's what a lot of these places here, and it's not just happening in South Florida, it's happening all over in other cities and other states as well, where they're gentrifying a lot of areas to make way for modelizing these areas. Liberty City, a lot of these areas in Liberty City are being gentrified to where now you're pushing a lot of the urban families, the African American families, you're pushing them out, and you're pushing in a lot of these mixed use families. Now you have Hispanics and Caucasian people that live in Liberty City and a lot of these urban areas where a lot of these people are now being pushed away because they're gentrifying their areas. And a lot of these people can't afford the new gentrifications. Like I said, the Liberty Square apartments, I've said this, where I knew somebody that used to stay in there, and I have a friend that stays there now, but I don't know, their living situation. I don't know, but a coworker of mine who used to stay there, before they moved, say that they was living in a 2-bedroom and it cost them $1,300 a month for a 2-bedroom. And I'm like, a lot of them people that used to stay in the old Liberty Square apartments probably pay no more than $1 a month in rent, depending on, because most of them was on Section 8. Now you have, I've walked the neighborhood, you have Hispanics and African Americans and Caucasian people that live in the new Liberty Square apartments, and to where now you're gentrifying it, so now everybody can live there. Back then when Liberty Square projects was there, it was mostly for the blacks. Remember the wall, and we talked about the wall that separated the blacks and the whites. And Liberty Square was one of the first housing projects in the United States. And it became the area for where the black people go at for living with affordable housing. Now, it's not affordable no more. You have rent is over $1,000 a month, and now you have security that drives around. They have 24-hour security and stuff like that. And I get it. A lot of this gentrification is because they want to get rid of all of the crime and get rid of all of the violence in certain areas, because like I said, Liberty Square was known for its high crime and high violence, and a lot of music videos was taped in the Liberty Square old community projects. Now, and I get some, I get it, and I don't get it. I get that you want to gentrify certain areas because you want to change it and make it into where it is now living. There is a post out there. There is a thing on now. I don't know for you Miamians, you probably know 18th Avenue in Liberty City, which is also known as Broadway Avenue, is being gentrified to not being gentrified, but they want to make it to where it is a arts and entertainment district, to where they can attract more tourism and a lot of more people. And the county commissioner, who is Keon Hardeman, who is the county commissioner for District 3, which resides, of course, in Liberty City, has proposed that different streets off of 18th Avenue between 62nd Street and 71st Street be named after songs from artists that's from Miami, like Betty White, Luther Campbell, what's the R&B group, Pretty Ricky, a lot of these artists, Pitbull, a lot of these artists that are here from South Florida, they're naming streets after some of their iconic songs, like No Pain, No Gain, It's Your Birthday from Luke, a lot of these things. So they're trying to gentrify these areas to where they're trying to attract more people to these areas, like with the Liberty Square projects. Now they don't just want African Americans living there. They want to gentrify where everybody can come live there. They want to make these streets safe. They want to make these neighborhoods safe to where when you think of Liberty City, you don't want to think of, high crime. That's where the shooting happens. That's where the gang violence happens. Now when you think of Liberty City, a predominantly mixed use area, because now, just like the same with Overtown, Overtown back then, Overtown was the black area. You had a lot of African Americans that lived in Overtown, and you have certain parts of Overtown like the Swamp or Rainbow and stuff like that. Now they're gentrifying Overtown. You have the 55 block mixed use development, which is steps away from the Overtown area. You have a lot of high rises that are being built. You have the Courtside Apartments, which is owned by Alonzo Mourning, and there are these are gentrified apartments, and a lot of these areas are being gentrified to where now they're moving in. It's like they're pushing away the urban and moving in gentrification, meaning the black people, you go away, but if you want to come back, now you got to pay a lot of money. You was paying only $500 to live here. Now you come back, you're going to be paying $1,000 to live here. You was only paying $200. Now you're going to be paying $1,200. So they're gentrifying these areas to where now it's like, why? So at the same time, I get why, I get some of the reasons for gentrification in these areas, but I don't get the reason for gentrification. The reason, and I'm going to explain to you why. Why I get the reason for gentrification is because now you want to make areas more tourist attracted. You want to attract tourism to a lot of these areas, because when you think of Miami, what do you think of? Aventura Mall, South Beach, Miami Beach, Brickell, you have, a lot of these areas, downtown Miami, Wynwood, because remember back then, about 20 years ago, Wynwood wasn't a attraction or wasn't a hangout spot. It wasn't that they started, because Wynwood is an art district. And about 20 years ago, Wynwood wasn't an art district. Wynwood was just a regular neighborhood in the city of Miami. Now Wynwood is known as the arts and entertainment district, as well as the eatery district, because you have a lot of art galleries and a lot of restaurants and stuff like that. So now they done gentrify Wynwood to become one of the hot popular spots. The same thing with Midtown in Miami. It wasn't something, just like the design district. The design district, it wasn't 20 years ago. The design district wasn't nothing. It was just a few little clothing stores, mom and pop clothing stores. Now you have high end, clothing stores and design stores, and a lot of these places that people like us can afford. I'm not going into a design store and paying $5,000 for a couch, where I can go get a nice couch for $200-$300, and it'll last me. And just because this couch was designed by some famous designer, so a lot of these places are gentrified, and I get it, because you want to attract more people to certain areas. Liberty City, you want to attract more tourists to Liberty City, not just because it's a black neighborhood. You want to build up shopping centers, and you want to build up high rises, and you want to build up places where people can go and they can explore, and they can come and eat without being shot at, without being killed, or without being robbed, and things like that. Remember I did a video of downtown Miami, how years ago downtown Miami used to be the premier shopping experience. Now downtown Miami looks like a total crap, and I know eventually it's going to be gentrified to where they're going to bring back the shopping experience to downtown Miami, because the only shopping experience in downtown Miami you have now is you have Bayside Marketplace, which I did a video of, and also the 55 block, which I did a video the same day of when I did the Bayside Marketplace. So and then you have Brickell. Brickell wasn't a shopping district. Brickell was just Brickell back 20 years ago was nothing but corporate office buildings. You had a few restaurants, but 20 years ago all you had was big high-rise corporate buildings and corporate offices and bank buildings and stuff like that. It was about 10, maybe 15 years ago where Brickell started saying, hey, let's start gentrifying this area and start making it a shopping district. Let's start making it into a tourist attraction. Now you have the Brickell City Center, which I did a video of, and you have several shops and several residencies, to where now people live in Brickell, because back then Brickell was just only a place where you go to work. Brickell didn't have these high-rise condominiums and stuff like that how they do now. It was just a place where you go to work, So now people not only work in Brickell, they shop and they eat in Brickell. And it's the same thing with a lot of these other places. River Landing. River Landing is just steps away from Jackson Hospital. You would have never guessed that they would have built a shopping center that just feet away from a hospital. When I remember one time that when my brother was in the hospital, and they gave him where he had to only eat certain types of foods and stuff like that. We ended up leaving Jackson Hospital, and we came right over to this River Landing. And this was, when River Landing first opened up. And we went right over here, and we went shopping in the Publix, even though the Publix was small. But, doctor give you a prescription. Even though Jackson has their own pharmacy, but doctor give you a prescription, you can come right over to Publix, which is feet away, less than a 5-minute drive, and fill the prescription. And not only that, you can get you something to eat from out of the deli, or you can go buy you something for groceries and stuff like that. So, it's like a lot of these places are being gentrified, because now they're trying to attract businesses to these areas. Not only attract businesses, but they want tourists for their money. They come in and say, hey, we want you to come over here, and we want you to buy stuff in our area. We want you to come to Liberty City and eat from our restaurants. Don't go downtown and eat from this restaurant. Don't go here and eat from this restaurant. I want you to eat from this restaurant. I want you to eat from our restaurant. Come to Liberty City to our restaurant. Come to Overtown to our restaurant and eat here. We want y'all to come. So this is what a lot of these places are, and this is what a lot of these places have come to, where they're gentrifying these areas to where, hey, we want you to come visit us. Every time people come to Miami, they're in South Beach, they're in downtown Miami, they're at Aventura Mall, they're at Lincoln Road Mall, Bal Harbor Shops, they're at a lot of these other areas, they don't go to Liberty City to go shopping at the North Side Shopping Center. They don't go to, Overtown and go shopping, in Overtown. Or they don't go, to certain areas. They go to these nice areas, Dadeland Mall and Dolphin Mall and a lot of these other shopping areas. They don't go to 163rd Street Mall where that's in the area. They go to a lot of these other high-end areas. You go to Brickell City Center. Let's go to Aventure Mall. Let's go to Lincoln Road Mall, and stuff like that. So now a lot of these areas are being gentrified. There wasn't a shopping center here near Jackson Hospital. They built one, so they say, hey, let's build a shopping and residential experience here near Jackson Hospital so that we can attract more tourists into this area. Because the area where River Landing is at, there's nothing but a bunch of bail bondsmen and lawyer offices where, because there's, like I said in the video earlier, there's a courthouse there and there's a jail. There's a jail there. Remember I said I went to the jail when I was in high school. We did a field trip there. So a lot of the businesses over there are bail bondsmen and stuff like that. So you would never guess that, hey, let's go eat over here. But you have restaurants over there now and you have a shopping experience, So now it's a lot of areas, a lot of stuff where, hey, I can go shopping here now. Hey, I can go live here now. I can work at Jackson Hospital, leave and walk down the street to my house at River Landing, and if I don't want to cook, I can go downstairs and grab a bite to eat in the shopping center. And so it's things like that that's, that makes you think, why are these places being gentrified? And it's being gentrified because they want to attract people into their areas. I get it, and I get what it is, but at the same time, I don't get it is that because you're pushing a lot of people away. I remember a few years ago, and this is going on now, there's doing construction on the 39. I told you, if you've seen the video earlier, that I showed you that they're doing construction on the 836 expressway. Prior to doing construction, they're widening the expressway to make it more lanes, And in the city of not the city, but in the neighborhood of Overtown, a lot of residents had to be brought out of their houses. And some of those houses been there since the 1960s and 70s, to where they had to be brought out of their houses to make way for construction. I remember I seen some posts a while back that when the creation of I-95 came about, a lot of people had to be pushed out of their homes, and a lot of people had to be pushed out of, where they lived at to make the construction of 95, and that's what happened here for 836 Dolphin Expressway. A lot of people that lived in the Overtown neighborhood had to be. I remember there was a burger restaurant that sat near the 836 Expressway. The burger restaurant was in a standalone building. They closed the building, and I guess they bought them out. And the burger restaurant still exists. It's now in a shopping center in Overtown. It's in the Overtown Plaza. It's called Two Guys Restaurant. But they had their own building. And one of the things is, I guess they got bought out by developers because they wanted to expand the 836 expressway. And a lot of people who had houses near the expressway, they brought them out of their houses. I don't know if they kicked them out or whatever, but I know they brought them out of their houses. And I've heard stories how a lot of the houses got rebranded. A lot of these people, a lot of these houses was there from the 60s and the 70s, probably from the 30s and the 20s. A lot of these houses was there since the early 1900s, to where they got demolished and now they're gone because of the fact of gentrification. I remember when I visited Atlanta and I was visiting the Ebenezer Baptist Church. I didn't tell you this was in 2019, but I did do a story of visiting Atlanta. Look at my episode of Traveling with the Roundtable Talk where I visited Atlanta. But when I went inside the Ebenezer Church, the guy, one of the tour guides, was telling me the house where Martin Luther King, that's where he was born. But down the street, there was a house where him and Coretta raised their kids. But the house got condemned to make way for construction of a new highway. Now, there isn't a signage, and I told them, and I was saying, why they don't have a signage that says this at this location is where the house sat at where Martin Luther King raised his kids. They only have the location of where Martin Luther King was born and the house he lived in as a kid. They don't have the house where Coretta, because I always thought that the same house that Martin Luther King was born in was the same house that him and Coretta raised their kids. But no, the house where Martin Luther King and Coretta Scott raised their kids was further down. It got condemned to make way for a new a highway. And I was like, they don't have signage? And that to me is gentrification, because now you're gentrifying areas to make way for new high-rise developments, new expressways, expanding expressways, like I said here for the 836 expressway. A lot of these places are being gentrified. Now, I want to know, do y'all think that it's a good thing that they're gentrifying these areas, or is it a bad thing? To me, it's both. Because I'm all for gentrification, because a lot of these areas need to accumulate gentrification, like the Liberty Square. I got why they want to gentrify the Liberty Square area, because it was a high crime, high violence area. So you had to gentrify it so you could stop the violence, stop the crime, and you want to, make it a better, safe living environment for kids and families. And I get a lot of, certain areas like that. I get it because now, and not only that, I get it because you want to attract tourism to certain areas. Because, back then in the 90s and early 2000s, people wasn't coming to Liberty City to tour. They thought of Liberty City as, it was on the first 48. I knew about Overtown on the first 48. A lot of tourists that I see around and I've had conversation with, they'll tell you, I know about Overtown from the first 48. I know about Liberty City from the first 48. And I'm like, that's how you see Liberty City? But if you actually take the time to go to Liberty City, you'll see that a lot of the areas, and Overtown as well, and not just Liberty City and Overtown, you have Miami Gardens, which was known as Carol City. You have Opelika. A lot of these urban areas where they're being gentrified because they're trying to attract tourism to their cities so they can accumulate money. Back then, a lot of these areas didn't have restaurants. They didn't have, shopping centers like that. They didn't have all these big high-rise condominiums. But now they're trying to gentrify it to where they're trying to attract more people to their areas. You don't want South Beach making all the money. You don't want Brickell making all the money. You don't want downtown making all the money. You don't want Aventura making all the money. A lot of the people where they live, when they come to Florida, when they come to Miami, there's two places you live. You stay at. You either stay by the airport at one of the hotels by the airport, or you go stay on the beach, at South Beach and Miami Beach. Now a lot of these areas, other areas, they want people to stay in downtown Miami so they can get some money. They want people to stay in Brickell so they can make some money. They want people to stay in Aventura so they can make their money. If I have people that stay down south in certain areas to make money, a lot of these, cities are trying to gentrify their cities. So hey, let's attract tourists here so we can get some of that South Beach money, so we can get some of that downtown Miami or airport money. We don't want all of the residents to be staying near the airport, because all the businesses near the airport is going to be making the money. We don't want all of the tourists staying in South Beach, because all the restaurants and the nightclubs and all of them are going to be, making money. Remember, years ago, Dorel was just a regular business area, like an office area. Dorel only had office buildings and a lot of high-rise office buildings and banks and financial institutions and all of that. Now Dorel has Trump buildings. They have shopping areas downtown Dorel. They have restaurants, bars. They have a lot of stuff because they gentrified Dorel. And it's the same way with Midtown, Wynwood, Brickell. A lot of these places got gentrified. So now tourists, they get to stay in Dorel. I've had a couple of people that say, I'm visiting and I'm staying in Dorel. And a lot of them stay in areas because it's more closest to where if they're working, is a lot of them staying over there because it's closest to wherever they're working at. And a lot of them staying over there because, they don't know Miami and they don't know where to go at. They just go where, the booking takes them. I remember when I stayed in 2019, when I stayed in Atlanta, when I visited Atlanta, one of the areas I stayed in, I did a website which was called Hotwire, and it was a hotel booking site. And I seen a place that was like $33, like $30-something a night. So I was like, oh, $30-something a night. And they was like, well, Hotwire, some of the hotels, they'll say, we don't tell you the name of the hotel until you book the hotel. And I was like, okay. So when I booked it, I ended up staying in Union City, which is on the outskirts of Atlanta. Now, traveling wise, it takes me about an hour or two by train and bus to get to my hotel. But I was actually nice with the price. And then when I visited my friend in Albany, I ended up coming back to Atlanta to stay an extra day. And I was like, I want to stay at the same hotel because I enjoyed $30-something. Now, when I stayed in Atlanta, when I did the video in Atlanta, when I was there in 2023, I stayed at a hotel and it was like maybe $60-something. But I was staying in East Point at the time. So I was like, okay, but it all comes to gentrification, And if I could stay at that hotel, and I looked up that hotel again, it's around the same price, $30-something a night, and it's in Union City. And if I said, I'll probably stay there again because of the price. It doesn't matter where I stay at, And for me, it was nice because the bus ride from my hotel to the train station, from the train station to the hotel, I got to saw a lot of stuff. I saw Eckert's. I ain't seen the Eckert's in so how long. I saw Eckert drugs. I get to saw, I saw a lot of the, structures, and I got to saw the outskirts of Atlanta to where, I was, seeing a lot of stuff. So this is what I said, it didn't faze me. So I want to know what y'all think about gentrification. Do y'all think it's a good thing? Do y'all think it's a bad thing? How do y'all feel about gentrification? Do you live in an area where they're gentrifying your area? Or do you live here in South Florida where your areas are being gentrified? I want to know what you think about it. Comment at the bottom of this page. You can also email me, roundtable00@yahoo.com. I'm kind of hungry right now, so I did stop to get a baby move. Remember, I'm going to go back to Riverland because I'm going to go to maybe Lion Mexican Grill and get something to eat. I don't know yet. But let me know how you feel about gentrification. To me, I'm for it and I'm against it. Because, I'm sorry, y'all. Baby Ruth is one of my favorite candies. Probably talk about that in the future. Anyway, I'm for it, I'm against it. Because I'm for it because, I believe we need to change certain neighborhoods to attract more tourism and to attract more businesses and people to areas to where we can get businesses and stuff like that. But I'm against it when you have to push people out of their homes and out of their houses like they did with that expansion of the 836 Expressway, where they kicked a lot of people out of their homes, even though they bought them out. But a lot of those homes been there since the early 1900s, and you had to tear them down just to make way for an expressway. So I agree and I don't agree. But I want to know how you feel about this. Comment at the bottom of this page. You can also email me, roundtable00@yahoo.com. This is it, and we're at the end of this episode. Actually, it didn't rain. When I was doing the episode at Riverland, I kind of felt drops. And they said it was supposed to rain, but it didn't rain. So I actually got through all 3 of my episodes without it being raining. And I am happy because of that. Yeah, but we are here at beautiful Sewell Park, E.G. Sewell Park. Also known to most of us as Sewell Park. Here in Miami. If you want to come check it out, come check it out. It's right off of 17th Avenue and Northwest River Drive here in the beautiful city of Miami. This is it. I am your host, C Money. Thank you for watching this episode. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. And also, don't forget to check out our other playlists, Hotspots in South Florida, History in South Florida, Traveling with the Roundtable Talk, and also Food Review South Florida as well. So, this is the Roundtable Talk. I am your host, C Money. As always, I say stay safe, stay blessed, stay hydrated, and of course it's the last video of the day because I did 2 other videos and this is the last video of the day. So, and happy Cinco de Mayo. I forgot. I said it in the first episode, in the first video earlier today. It is Cinco de Mayo. Happy Cinco de Mayo to all of you. Hope you out there drink responsibly because I know Cinco de Mayo is about, drinking margaritas and, having fun and stuff like that. Eat you some tacos. It's Cinco de Mayo, so I'm going to go to Lime Mexican Grill, which is at Riverland. And I'm going to have me some Cinco de Mayo fun. I don't drink, so I can't do that, But happy Cinco de Mayo Day. As always, stay blessed. Stay safe, stay blessed, stay hydrated, and I will see you in the next episode of the Roundtable Talk. I am out of here. I'm your host, C Money. Take care.